Since school's back in session, why not take a look at what I consider to be the show's quintessential school episode? Of course, it would be the one about avoiding accountability, but I assure you that that's just a happy coincidence.
Why can't we just go back to the gold star smiley face system?
The same reason we won't let you sleep with your banky anymore.
But I still... Oh...
Hey folks, welcome to Squirrel Tactics. Don't hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the Patreon, History Channel, merch store, all the good stuff. Let's do this thing. No Bobby Left Behind. The title comes from No Child Left Behind, a government program pushed by the Bush administration that changed how school funding was determined, to put it very basically. I have an opinion on it, but I'll get to that here in a minute. Also, yes, there is an episode of the revival called No Hank Left Behind. Some things of note for this episode is that Boomhauer appears but does not speak, and even Bill only has this to say.
I was evaluated when I joined the military. The test said I was dull normal.
This episode is more Bobby-centric. However, if anything, it's very Tom Landry staff-heavy. As in, I wouldn't be surprised if I found out that this was a failed backdoor pilot. For those unaware, a backdoor pilot has nothing to do with anal, but rather is an episode of a series meant to test the waters for another show idea, possibly leading to a spin-off series. A recent-ish example would be the weird episode of Stranger Things where Eleven runs around with a group of powered teens. The idea being that if people liked it, then they would go for a spin-off about that group. It did not go well. Honestly, it just felt super out of place, as a lot of backdoor pilots do. And afterwards, the showrunners tried to kind of downplay the backdoor pilot aspect, but they ain't fooling us.
The point is, how do you know the fairy isn't a crazy glue sniffer? Building model airplanes, says the little fairy. Well, we're not buying it.
They poke fun at issues with the U.S. public educational system, as well as the No Child Left Behind policy, though Dale Gribble level conspiracy theory here. It is possible that the U.S. public education system isn't broken, it's actually working the way it's designed. Keep in mind, the two largest private employers in the U.S. are Walmart and Amazon, and we need a hell of a lot more shelf stockers, order pickers, and burger flippers than we need doctors, lawyers, or astronauts. And as far as the latter are concerned, well, that's where private schools come in. Public schools are meant to turn children into good little workers who show up when they're told, sit where they're told, speak when they're told, and otherwise just keep their heads down, keep their mouths shut, and do as they're told. Public schools are nothing more than cog factories, creating new generations of cogs to replace the ones that are wearing out. And conspiracy theory over.
Did you mean for all those words to come out together, or did they just fall out randomly?
Oh, Hank, you're just a mouse caught in the government's habit trail.
The episode starts off with Hank and Peggy having a parent-teacher conference with Bobby's math teacher, who isn't named but is voiced by Breckin Meyer, who also voiced post-puberty Joseph.
What the hell are we gonna do now? I'm totally screwed. I don't have time to be walking through the woods right now.
Josh, look. We're gonna call a tow truck. We'll have the axles fixed. We'll probably lose half a day at most. It'll be fine. It's just the wheels.
And the issue here is that Bobby claims it's not his fault that he failed his test. The teacher claims that it's not his fault and tries to claim that Bobby is just a bad test taker. Hell, even Peggy blames it on Hank not letting Bobby watch Sesame Street, but Hank sees it for what it is. Bobby being lazy and people making excuses for him, not the lack of a vampire with a love for reciting numbers. This continues over to dinner, where we see Hank eating a fried chicken drumstick with a fork and knife. I mean, I guess it's a way to eat it. For me, that ranks up there with Peggy eating her sloppy Joe with a fork and knife, though, but that's just me. Hank reiterates his correct belief that Bobby's failure is due to not trying, with Peggy backing him up on it at this point, but that doesn't last. We head up to the school where Principal Moss walks into a tense situation in the teacher's lounge, plus the idea that a school board member, this one in particular, is named Stu and also appears in Bobby Ray.
Why are you looking at me that way, Stu?
Carl, I wish I hadn't seen what just happened here, but I did see it, and more importantly, I was seeing it.
Is there without Carl's knowledge probably kind of freaked him out because, it's Carl Moss. That man was hanging on by a thread or two ago.
If I could still feel anything, I'd be inspired.
He tells Carl that they have a No Child Left Behind problem, to which Carl has a great response.
Stu, tell the school board we haven't left behind a child in over 5 years at Tom Landry. Hell, we pass everybody.
Yeah, they still pretty much do that. Stu informs him that the new program is centered on students passing the state standardized test. When I was in school, it was the Texas Assessment of Academic Skills, or TAS test, which was replaced by the Texas Assessment of Knowledge and Skills, or TAKS test in 2002, and it would have been the TAKS test that would have been the test that the kids at Tom Landry would have been taking in this episode. And just so you know, that was replaced in 2012 with the current State of Texas Assessments of Academic Readiness, or STAR test. Whatever you want to call them, yeah, they're about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. So, No Child Left Behind was a strategy of measuring progress in the educational system by having each state implement standardized tests as a means of identifying and fixing deficiencies in academic growth and achievement. However, it didn't work because of course it didn't work. All schools were worried about was teaching to the test. That way, kids would have a better chance at passing it. The bill was overall properly funded but not properly managed, which, that's par for the course as it pertains to the U.S. public education system. They get ridiculous amounts of money, and yet somehow that money doesn't make it down to the classroom for the teachers and students that actually need it. There's a lot of pros and cons for No Child Left Behind, but ultimately it was a failure. Now, Stu mentions that they haven't hit their expectations in 2 years, meaning, in real life, that if they fail for a third year, then the school is required to offer free tutoring for students who are struggling. Jobs wouldn't be on the line until after they failed 4 times in a row, at which point the school would be labeled as needing corrective action. It is also important to remember that the state creates the tests and they set the standards to reach. The federal government only mandated that they set standards. Anywho, what matters here is that they need to get the student scores up, but when Moss tries to appeal to the students, well, they're kinda on board with the adults possibly losing their jobs. But Carl puts some level of fear in them when he warns what'll happen if the school shuts down.
Maybe a few of you will get lucky and end up in North Ireland, but most of you will be finishing out your year in Durndal.
So, Durndal, which, I will eventually do a video on it, is like 40 miles away from Arlen.
This place is all the way in West Durndal. I'm not going to drive my truck 40 miles on some magic carpet ride so some jackass mechanic can tell me there's nothing he can do.
Yeah, see? So why would they bus students to a school 40 miles away? What about West Arlen? Granted, this seems to be an empty threat, pretty much the only kind that Carl Moss makes. Same thing goes for promises. But the school starts to focus on teaching the test in hopes of meeting the state standards. Don't really recommend waiting until 2 weeks before the test to start preparing for it, though. An example of all hands being on deck is Coach Kleehammer teaching math in PE class, though it doesn't quite go as well as he or his temper would have hoped.
I pass.
Hill!
Can you use it in a sentence, please?
What? I just did, you little knucklehead!
The faculty have a brainstorming session coming up with ideas such as surrounding certain kids with children for them to cheat off of, or planting drugs in poor performers' lockers. She is way too upbeat about framing children for drug possession. But instead, Carl comes across something that he sees as his way out. His plan is to get the kids who aren't going to pass the test to be labeled as special needs, and therefore they would be exempt from the standardized test, something the kids are iffy of until they find out about the perks of going along with it, such as not having to take the test, no homework, and a free trip to Alamo Land.
But I thought that trip was only for the kids on the honor roll.
Well, it would be an honor for the special needs kids to come along.
Oh, and as far as his plan, yeah, that wouldn't work, because of course that wouldn't work. Besides any obvious moral issue, children who were special needs but not like severely disabled were still expected to take the test. The exact same test as the other students. Plus, all these kids took the test the year before, so their new results are going to be compared to their old results to see if there is improvement. It's an interesting plot idea, like faking your way into the Special Olympics.
Slogan, like life is like a box of chocolates. Oh, take my hands, boss, like that Monster Tard from the Green Mile. Monster Tard, what's wrong with you?
I bet y'all were expecting South Park there, but no, you got The Ringer. And if you've never seen The Ringer, seriously, watch The Ringer. The film is actually endorsed by the real-life Special Olympics.
You stopped off for ice cream.
When the fuck did we get ice cream?
Anywho, they wrangle up the kids that they figure are gonna fail. It's the usual suspects: Bobby, Joseph, Dooley, Clark Peters, Ramon. Joseph's eventual girlfriend, Lori, is sitting right there next to Joseph.
I think Lori wants to go all the way.
All the way where? Oh, Lord.
I'm feeling a lot of pressure from her, and I don't know what to do. Mr. Hill?
They ace the special needs test, as in they seem special enough to be labeled as special, but Hank ain't happy when he finds out about all this, knowing full well that Bobby is not special needs. But Peggy, on the other hand, goes in the opposite direction and clings to the idea that Bobby not doing well isn't Bobby or her fault. Hank goes to the school first to confront Carl Moss, but yeah, Carl does what he does best, and that's run away from facing consequences. Man, that guy can move when he wants to. Hank is then directed to the kindergarten kingdom doorway, behind which the special needs class is special needing. He talks with Mr. Turkelson, the man sent by the district to handle the special needs situation, and Hank flat out tells him that Bobby doesn't belong in that class because he doesn't. However, Turkelson argues that they still have to determine just how special Bobby is. I'm not quite sure if he actually believes what he's saying or if he's intentionally being obtuse for the sake of job security. Could be a combination of both. What matters is that Hank ain't getting any help here.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever found a kid who wasn't special?
No. We also see just how desperate the school leadership is getting, as though the whole fake special needs thing wasn't bad enough, when they start pulling kids out of class for just not paying attention. Dude, they're kids, that's gonna happen, but that's also the point. And of course, the kids are gonna go along with it when they get all the ice cream and beanbag time that they want, though it is rather disconcerting, to Hank at least, when Bobby brings home preschool level arts and crafts while also singing songs about how to use the bathroom, with Peggy just eating it up.
You are my little miracle.
Peggy, he was making those when he was 4.
Ugh, that preschool was so demanding.
So this episode, to an extent, does use that old tried and true trope of Hank being the only voice of reason. The explanation for everyone else looking the other way this time is that it takes blame for their children's failures off their shoulders. Unfortunately, this often mirrors real-life parents.
Yep. Not my fault.
We get to the Alamo Land trip. It looks to be based on the battle and not so much the beer company, though who knows, maybe it's both. I'm guessing it's meant to be a combination of Six Flags Over Texas at Arlington, Six Flags Astro World in Houston, and more so than the other two, Six Flags Fiesta Texas and San Antonio. San Antonio, of course, being where the Alamo is located.
The Alamo was a mission in present-day San Antonio, population 1.5 million. That's it?
Maybe the Alamo just isn't that important.
It is the most inspiring event in all of Texas history.
I could totally see a ride called Santa Anna's Revenge there. Also, I'm guessing that Santa Anna's Revenge is a nod to Montezuma's Revenge, a former ride at Knott's Berry Farm in California. And yes, for those unaware, Montezuma's Revenge is a gastrointestinal issue caused by drinking the water in Mexico, apparently.
My revenge shall be eternal! Montezuma, there shall be no revenge! Revenge
Moving on, I love how Con is making the honor students answer questions in order to go on the rides. Yeah, it's a pretty crappy thing for him to do, but it's Con, and would you really expect any different from Con? This brings us to the log ride, or log flume if you prefer, apparently known as the Falls of Fury, where we see a lot of mistakes getting made. First off, who the hell put Dale in charge of anything living? That's a bad idea, especially living children. Hell, I wouldn't necessarily trust Dale with dead children, let alone live ones.
I can't keep this up. It's not in my nature to care about others. And if there are cops, they'll try to pin it on me. And since I did it, they will succeed.
Oh, my God, you know he'll take us down with him.
That does sound like me, Hank.
Your dad's so cool. I don't know why my parents hate him.
Worthless man-child aside, let's not forget the part where the special needs child outsmarts the amusement park employee. That cannot be good. And there's an easy solution to the problem, which is that Joseph and Lori want to go on the ride at the same time. Hell, there's two easy solutions. Solution 1, Dooley gets off, Joseph gets on. Solution 2, Lori gets off, someone else gets on, they ride together in the next log. Plus, in real life, if this type of thing happened and the ride operator wasn't sure how to proceed, they would either radio or call in to get instructions from someone above them, at which point it would have been made evident how stupid the idea of squeezing more special needs kids onto a ride than it's designed to carry really is.
We are special needs children, and we are required by state law to stay with our buddies at all times.
Okay, go ahead.
Dale is to blame first and foremost, but that ride operator is up there too. Again, you got outsmarted by a special needs kid. But yeah, whatever. All the kids pile into one log and head on downstream, with Dale totally oblivious to the kids jumping around, rocking the boat, falling out of said boat. Like, seriously, how did Dale not notice that? He might actually be the only special needs person in that group, and he's the chaperone. All the kids end up in the water due to horsing around, and of course the guy in charge of monitoring the ride is too busy playing cards to notice this and shut the ride down. So the kids end up tumbling down the big drop at the end outside of the log, to everyone down below's horror. The horror. The horror. Now, we don't know how tall that drop is. My guess is that the log there is about 10 feet or so I'd say that's about a 50-foot drop. And depending on the angle of drop plus the depth of the water at the bottom, which ain't much because the kids can easily stand up in it, it's kind of surprising that they weren't hurt. That ride is designed to be taken in the log, and yeah, I know that sounds weird. There ends up being a big to-do about the whole thing, not surprised, with Principal Moss freaking out because everyone wants to blame him, even though more fault could be put on the ride operator, ride security, and Dale.
This is still America, right? The land of second chances? I'm really stuck here. I don't have anyone to take the blame. Emily's too young to take the fall, and everybody thinks Dale Gribble's a special needs kid.
Ultimately, Carl decides to do what he should have done in the first place, and that's to have the slowest learners be taught by the best teachers, which was actually one of the points behind No Child Left Behind in design, but not so much in execution. The kids are tutored to the tune of Kids in America by Kim Wilde, and it seems that even though they started giving it a valiant effort after the 2-minute warning, they still lost the game. And as such, Principal Moss is replaced, at least temporarily, by Coach Kleehammer. But Carl's a survivor, and we end the episode with how he's getting by.
I never heard of a J-bone.
Help a brother out, guys. I need to keep my medical current until my suspension's over. I got that disease where you wake up in strange places drunk.
But alcoholism is a disease, but it's like the only disease that you can get yelled at for having. Damn it, Otto, you're an alcoholic. Damn it, Otto, you have lupus. One of those two doesn't sound right.
It should be noted that there is no such thing as a J-bone steak, and though there are legit, though overpriced, mail-order steak companies out there like Omaha Steaks, Carl seems to be selling for someone more like Iowa Steaks, which was a scam. And if Hank hates the quality of meat at Megalo Mart, he's gonna loathe that J-bone.
I bought some steaks here yesterday, and they weren't very good.
Maybe you cooked them wrong.
You don't know me, so I'll pretend I didn't hear that.
So, no Bobby left behind. Something I always find interesting is that in the end, Bobby passes the standardized test, therefore proving Hank correct in that Bobby just needed to be pushed. It also shows that if you give underperforming students access to educational resources, they can succeed, which interestingly enough was one of the goals of No Child Left Behind. Though poor execution and allocations of funds more or less ended up being the problem. Well, that and they wanted every student to be above average, which is technically mathematically impossible. I tend to like episodes about education. As many of you know, I went to school to be a history teacher before deciding, yeah, I don't want to deal with that bullshit. Don't get me wrong, talking about history to people that want to learn about history is like my second dream job. My first dream job, of course, being Santa Claus. I mean, seriously, I get to bring joy to billions of children all over the world. I only have to work like 4 or 5 nights a year max. I get to own my own compound out in the middle of nowhere, and the only folks I have to interact with either work for me or are a wife who wants to keep me fat and happy. Living the high life in a constant winter wonderland up to my gills with hot chocolate, sausage balls, and Cabot cheese?
Boy, that cheese.
Where do I sign up for that? Whose roof do I have to push this guy off of? I really like this episode. It's the best episode of the 13th season. Granted, that's not saying much, but it's still a classic, enjoyable episode. They do go a little far with having Peggy babying Bobby when she thinks that he's special. I mean, come on now, Peggy, you're smarter than that. But the depths of Principal Moss' desperation, how he darts from terrible idea to terrible idea like a rat evading capture, Dale being the best version of Dale, and the sadly realistic depiction of the school more than make up for Peggy's funny, but not exactly understandable coddling. The episode points out how everyone, well except Hank, tries to avoid blame. In fact, more time and energy seem to be spent on dodging blame than on fixing actual problems, which unfortunately is what a lot, if not most, people do. It shined a light on a real issue in a humorous and enjoyable manner, obviously the best way to do it, and this episode to me showed that even late into the original run, there were still glimpses of the golden age. And if nothing else, we got a peek into what terrified little Bobby.
I told you we should have let him watch Sesame Street.
Don't blame me. The boy was terrified of puppets. Too bad that didn't stick.
Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see y'all next time.
At the end of each day, all over the country, nothing satisfies so many people in so many ways. Beef. It's what's for dinner.